This is the new Tag Heuer Formula 1 Solargraph, and in this video I'm going to be telling you why it's not overpriced. Yes, I know what you've heard. This is a hot take, and stick around. I'll tell you why. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And this year at Watches and Wonders was a special year for Tag because it was the relaunch of the original, the GOATed Formula 1 watch. Now, everybody kind of knew this was coming, in essence. And the reason that they knew it was coming is because they just took over the sponsorship of the Formula 1. So it kind of makes sense with the connection there between Tag and the replacement of Rolex as the sponsor of Formula 1, the timekeeper of Formula 1. It just kind of made sense. That, as well as the clocks at the Formula 1 racetrack, changed to be the Tag Heuer Formula 1 clocks without the watch being released. So we all kind of knew what was going on. Now, the Tag Heuer Formula 1 was originally released in 1986, and it's an interesting release because it's the watch that put Tag on the map, or Tag Heuer on the map, shall I say. So Tag and Heuer were actually separate standalone companies until 1985. And in 1985, that's when they came together to make what we would know now as Tag Heuer, instead of Tag and Heuer being separate. Now, the Tag Heuer Formula 1 was the first watch in 1986 to have the Tag Heuer logo as we see it today on the dial. So this represents a very special time, a very significant time in Tag Heuer's history. Now, in 1986, there was tons of these retro Tag Heuer Formula 1 watches released, and they were loved by literally everyone. The amount of people that I talked to about their watch collections, and all of them either started with a Tag Heuer Formula 1 or wanted a Tag Heuer Formula 1 when they were younger. It was like the GOATed watch back in the day. Now, if we fast forward to 2025, this year at Watches and Wonders, Tag Heuer released this, the new Tag Heuer Solargraph Formula 1. Now, as per tradition, these watches have been released in a ton of different variants, and I don't have time literally to go through all of them, but I'm just gonna touch on a couple at the moment, just so you know the kind of different variants here. So there's a sandblasted steel variant. This is the variant that I have in my hand right now. This is the white dial with the black bezel, but you also get blue, you get a green bezel, and also you have a rubber strap option. You have a black DLC coated version. They come in yellow and black, or you have a TH Polylite version that comes in red, blue, or green. The specs of these watches play wonderfully into that vintage vibe that we kind of know and love from the Formula 1. So they come in at 38 millimeters in diameter, a perfect sizing for most wrists, especially mine coming in at 6.5 inches. I thought this wore just wonderfully. And I think it wore even better because of the thickness. These models come in at just under 10 millimeters in thickness, coming in at 9.9 millimeters in thickness. Now, part of that is because of the Solargraph movement, so it's not an automatic movement, it is a quartz movement, but we'll move on to that and the details surrounding that in a little bit. By the way, guys, I know that as I'm going over these specs, you guys are thinking, why is it priced this way? I'm looking at the price and I don't see the correlation between the price and the specs. Just give me 5 minutes, let me talk about this watch, and at the end, I'll give my kind of my summary as to why I think it's not overpriced. The lug distance is 18.5 millimeters. The water resistance is 100 meters. The case is in full sand-blasted steel, and the bezel is in a TH Polylite material. Now, the bezel on this model is never going to be to the same quality as a full, let's say aluminium disc insert or a ceramic bezel. And that's just because it's a different material, but also it's a totally different price bracket. But what I do love about this bezel is the design. They have stayed true to their roots. They have stayed true to the history of the Tag Heuer Formula 1, and I gotta say, I love it. Now, I don't like the way it feels as much, but then you do get what you're paying for, kinda. The dial on the specific model that we have in our hands today comes in white, but what I would say about this white dial is it's not the normal white that you tend to see on luxury watches. And I think that's partially because it has a Solargraph movement, which means the dial needs to be that slightly transparent material so that light can get into the movement in order to power it. So what you have is this quite cool actually looking dial that's like semi-translucent, and it's quite hard to spot unless you're in quite intense light, but it's actually quite cool. I did quite enjoy that, and it gives an extra layer of depth to this watch, I would say. It has a red flange around the outside, and past that point you get to the black bezel that contrasts wonderfully with that white and also that red. These watches definitely stand out on the wrist, and they're quite a lot of fun. The face on these models also has a date window at the 3 o'clock mark. It's small but highly readable. Not much to comment on there. It is quite nicely done. Something that I do like about this model though, something that's a bit nerdy, a bit weird, is on the metal variant, on the steel variant. The crown is actually in polished, whereas the other aspects of this watch are in brushed. I think this gives the watch kind of more of a flair, more of an eye-catching appearance. And I know it's probably like Marmite, some people love it, some people really hate it, but to me, I actually quite like it. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that, because I know this can be kind of a, what do you call it? A controversial one. The bracelet on this model is in full steel, and it is a sand-blasted steel, and it has a folding clasp at the bottom, again in steel. Now, there's nothing really bad to comment on this bracelet, but I wouldn't say there's anything majorly stand out either. It's pretty standard, but remember the price that you're paying, I suppose. The dial on this watch is also filled with superluminova, so you can read it in the dark, and it's pretty strong. It's a pretty good lume. The movement on these watches is interesting because it's the Solargraph TH50-00, and this is actually a Citizen E168 base, and it's a fully quartz-operated movement. Now, interestingly enough, if you leave this watch with the Solargraph movement in natural or unnatural light for just 1 minute, it can charge the watch for an entire day. And if you were to leave it in the dark, let's say you put it in the safe, it will run for around about 10 months before dying. Now, it's actually quite impressive, that movement. It's actually quite impressive, that technology, and I really, really like it. Now, there have been a ton of people online talking about how this is too similar to the Kith limited edition that they released in 2024, I believe, but it actually isn't. Like, see, when you look at the specs, see when you look at some of the kind of pillars that make this watch, it's actually very different. So, for example, the Kith limited edition was, as the name suggests, limited edition. This watch is not. It's not limited edition. The new Solargraph that we're looking at the moment is actually larger. It's actually 3mm larger than the Kith models that come in at 35mm instead of the 38mm that the non-limited models come in at. The new Solargraph models also feature a kind of slightly redesigned case, bezel, and also strap options. There's a wider range of colorways, and when you look at them both together, you can see quite a lot of differences coming through. I think these watches are, to be honest, quite different, and I wouldn't compare them side by side because they're kind of non-comparable. And now we get to the price. The price. This comes in at £1,650. Now, before you start writing in the comments, before you start slating me for my title, give me 2 seconds to explain myself. I feel like whenever you have a relaunch of a watch that plays such a significant role in the brand's history, you are always going to pay a premium. You're going to pay a premium for the sentimental attachment that people have to that watch. You're going to pay a premium for the brand itself, Tag Heuer as a brand. You're going to pay a premium for the historical significance that that watch itself represents. I'm going to liken this to the Omega Speedmaster. Let's liken it to the 321 movement. You're paying a huge premium for the 321 movement because it was the original goated movement that accompanied the guys to the moon. And there's not that much that's functionally different between Omega Speedmaster 321 movement and the original manual wind Omega Speedmaster. It's just the fact that the historical impact that that movement had was, well, impactful. Now, I know there's more that goes into that specific movement than that, but you guys get my point. There's a moment in time that people connect with, and they're willing to pay a premium for that. To top that off, you do have Tag Heuer now investing millions upon millions to become the official timekeepers of the F1, to reclaim that throne of the F1 racetrack. So you've got tons of different factors playing in tandem to create a slightly elevated price. So I understand what some people are saying when they think this watch is too expensive. I kind of get the argument, but at the same time, I think there's reasons to back up the fact why it is so expensive. I don't think it's fair to just rule this watch out because of the price. I think there's a lot more that goes into this watch than just what you see on the surface. And that's what I would bear in mind. But on that note, that's just my opinion, one watch guy's opinion. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys real soon.